Okay, so now for one final graphic I'd like to show you how to make. We'll create a simple choropleth map, and you can see there's three different types of maps you can make. Um, Pretty self-explanatory, right? If you want to go through and play around with these, certainly making locator and symbol maps are not too difficult to do. I want to show you guys how to use the choropleth maps today. So if we click on choropleth map, the first thing it's going to ask us to do is select our map. And like I mentioned earlier, there are just a ton of different options for maps here. You can select it by continent, etc. I want to scroll down. You can see how many there are. Scroll down to the US, and we'll find Maryland. All right, here we go. USA. Maryland, and we've got zip codes. We've also got legislative tracts, district courts, and counties, which is actually what we want to use right now. So this shows every county in Maryland, and we'll go ahead and click next, and it's going to let us insert our data. So I have some data here that I've already sort of formatted for this use. And this shows, according to one projection, how many extreme heat events each Maryland county can expect in the year 2040, I believe. Yeah. So, I'm just going to copy and paste this data. It's got two columns, the county name and the projected number. And I'm just going to go ahead and just paste over top of all this stuff here. And that didn't quite do that right. Let's try that again. I'm going to try doing it without my column headers there. There we go. And that's a sort of hanging chad there from the last one. Okay. So now if we click proceed, right, we can see it's going to go ahead and create a map based on that data. So it just created a nice legend for us here where it broke down, based on the numbers that we gave it, it created this nice choropleth map showing the heat events, projected number of heat events for each county in 2040. Right, so a lot of this work was really in formatting of the data, right? As long as you've collected the data and set it next to the right county, Datawrapper does a lot of the work for you here. So again, we don't need to select the column. This is already all set up for us. We can change the colors here. You can change colors for individual stops. You can add the number of stops in your color ramp. We're going to go ahead and leave this as is for now. It's doing it in 5 increments of 5, which is totally fine. As far as changing the colors, I would generally go with one of the color ramps that's predefined in the program. That's going to be easiest. We'll just go ahead and leave it with this top one for now, which is a pretty nice looking color ramp. So one option it gives us is to customize tooltips. So right off the bat, there are really no tooltips, but that's a nice thing to have, right? So if we go back and we look at our data, you can see it's arranged our data by 2 columns. It's called the county, the ID, and the number of heat events, the value. And that's how we'll have to refer to that data when we create the tooltip. So you can see, you can click either one and it'll add it. So for instance, maybe we want the ID to be the title, and then we can insert the value, which is so it's going to say the county name, and then in the body, it's going to tell us the number of heat events. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like, right? So it's just showing us, right, the county and the number of heat events for that county. And maybe we want to customize that a little bit more and have it say, the number and then heat events in 2040. Okay. And so now it'll give us a little bit more, this tooltip gives us a little bit more information. And maybe we want to hedge a little bit because we don't really know, and we'll say this is projected heat events in 2040, right? Because it's really a projection. Okay, so we've got the map zoomable. We've got our map key over here. And you can see it's kind of weird. It's overlapping with our map. So maybe instead of having that in the bottom right, with Maryland, it's always a good idea to put your key or your legend in the bottom left because there's this big empty space here. We can also add a title, right? So number of heat events in 2040, right? Okay. And so we've really cleaned that up. Looks pretty nice. Not a lot more we really need to do with that. Let's go over and add our headline now. So we're going to give this a headline that says projected heat events in the year 2040. We'll give it a description that says, sort of lets people know what they're looking at. So this map shows the number of projected heat events in the year 2040 for each Maryland county according to one projection. Okay, and we'll go ahead and add a source, which is the Maryland Climate and Health Report. And I'll go ahead and add my byline. Okay, and again, I think this is pretty much ready to go at this point. I'll go over to design and enable social sharing. And this is ready to publish, right? So I can come over here and click Publish Chart. And it'll go ahead and publish the chart and allow me to copy the embed that I can paste right into my WordPress story to get a map that looks exactly like this in my story wherever I want it to go. Okay, so I really encourage you to play around with Datawrapper and explore some of the other chart and graph types that exist there. I wanted to show you guys a few resources here. So let's go back to the presentation just really quick. So Datawrapper has some training, right, at academy.datawrapper.de. And that's the URL for Datawrapper is datawrapper.de. And they're going to have all kinds of information in their academy about how to create different chart types and just a great knowledge base. There's also a button directly in the app while you're creating graphics, that need help button that will help you, with specific tasks for creating the graphic that you're trying to do right there. There's also a great Datawrapper blog at blog.datawrapper.de that highlights different types of graphics and different methods, and pretty interesting read. The blog also shows some weekly charts that you can sort of get inspiration from, and some how-tos. There's a newsletter. There's a Twitter feed. And there's also what's called a river at river.datawrapper.de, which just shows like recent charts and graphs that people have made in Datawrapper for inspiration. So finally, if you're interested in trying to make any of the graphics that we did in this training session, there's a Datawrapper exercise that includes the data that we just used at this URL right here. It's go.umd.edu/I uppercase Y, uppercase C. And there's also a Datawrapper workshop that was put out by Datawrapper. It has 200 training slides. It's very in-depth, that I've also hosted at go.umd.edu/I_YV. So have fun, make graphics for Datawrapper. If you have any questions, please let me know.